Welcome back to the Communication Mastery podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. This is where we unleash the power of understanding to build bridges and not boxes, because we understand that communication is the oxygen of teamwork. We all need communication to thrive in life and work. And in this podcast, we want to increase your communication mastery so that we can all learn to adapt to one another and be effective in our communication. So thanks for being here. Let's learn together. Welcome back to the Communication Mastery podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. This is where we unleash the power of understanding to build bridges and not boxes, because we understand that communication is the oxygen of teamwork. We all need communication to thrive in life and work. And in this podcast, we want to increase your communication mastery so that we can all learn to adapt to one another and be effective in our communication. So thanks for being here. Let's learn together. And welcome back. Today, we want to talk about 10 key principles for business communication. 10 simple things that you can grasp and apply to improve your business communication literally overnight if you'll do all of them. Of course, that means you've got to learn them all by overnight, and so I don't want to put that on you. But let's unpack what I mean by 10 key principles. The first one, always in business, is clarity. If you can be clear, if you can say exactly what you mean without having extra jargon, business speak, then you're always going to be more effective in your communication. You can be clear and direct. You can be clear and gentle. You can be clear and open to input. But by being clear, saying exactly what you mean, your communication will always be more effective. Use simple language, use direct language, use short, straightforward words and not long, complicated ones, because clear communication always reduces misunderstanding and clear communication always saves time. So clarity would be the biggest win that you can achieve. Work for clarity. And that takes work on your part to prepare ahead of time. How can I say this more clearly? How can I convey this more directly? How can I be simpler in the way I explain this? Too many of us think that we gain kudos or standing with a group of people or with individuals that we employ by using big fancy words, when actually simple, clear, direct communication always increases trust, always increases acceptance, always decreases misunderstanding. And so clarity is vital. Second key principle for business communication would be conciseness, because in business, time is money, isn't it? And so if I can say what I need to say and get to the point quickly, that will always be valuable. I hope you notice that these podcast episodes are mostly 10 to 15 minutes total. I value your time and I don't want to fill it with lots of words. I want you to be able to grasp what I'm saying quickly, easily. If you need to, you can hit replay or rewind. But if I can get it across concisely, it's of value to you because I value your time. So we want to eliminate unnecessary words. We want to eliminate repetition because concise messages are easier to absorb. A simply put, concise message, I can get hold of that. If it's filled with lots and lots of sentences that are mostly repetitive, I'm going to forget or miss the point of the communication. It's also more respectful of the time of those you're speaking with. If you're a business leader, your followers will respect you more if you can be concise as well as clear. The third key principle in business is to be consistent. Too often it's tempting to be all over the map with our communication. Whatever the issue that's front of mind this morning or this week or today comes out in the communication, when actually as a business leader you need to stay consistent and keep your messaging aligned at all times with the company's goals, the company's mission, the values that you want to reinforce. So You need to make sure that there's no variation in messaging across platforms, between meetings and emails, for example, or between marketing and customer service. The value proposition of your business needs to be clearly defined, and the messaging that goes around that needs to be consistent. You want to reinforce your goals regularly. You need to reinforce your values regularly. You, of course, are the ones as an executive team or as the business owner, you're the one who holds those values and holds those goals. And so to you, it may feel repetitive to keep reinforcing them, but your team and your customers and your clients need you to be that consistent so that they're always sure what you stand for. Consistency builds trust with your employees, but also with your customer base. And so consistency is a very important key to your business communication being effective. Just think about some of the brands that you know that come across to you as really being consistent. They've usually got the same slogan that they use for long periods of time. You know them for what they stand for. The same for your business. If you can be known for what you stand for, known for what you offer, it's clear, it's concise, and it's consistent, then you will get the payoff of that effective communication. Fourth key principle for effective business communication is to have audience awareness. You need to understand what do the listeners need in order to receive what it is you want to communicate, or the reader, what will be their level of understanding. You're going to communicate very differently to university faculty than you would do to a class of middle schoolers, for example. You're going to use different language. People with different interests, you're going to communicate to them differently. Computer video gamers are going to have a very different vocabulary than retired birders, just picking random but very different categories of people. So who am I aiming for with my communication? Make sure I tailor the message, whether it's delivered in a video or in an audio message, or whether it's in a meeting, or whether it's written. You need to tailor it to the preferred audience, the people you want to communicate to, because different ones have different needs in their communication. So ask yourself this: what do they need to know, and why should they care about what I'm communicating? Because effective communication always starts with empathy, with understanding, with connection. And you need to put the work in ahead of time to achieve that audience awareness so that you can make sure you don't unintentionally thwart that. The fifth key would be active listening, because most of us, sadly, tend to listen in order to respond. But active listening is completely the opposite of that. It's where I'm paying full attention to who I'm listening to. I'm asking clarifying questions. I'm reflecting what I'm hearing. I'm avoiding interrupting so a person can complete their flow of thought and communicate that in its entirety. With the reflecting back, I'm confirming that I've understood, or I'm getting clarification from the person I'm listening to increase my understanding, to increase my receptivity. So listening well can often be far more powerful than speaking well. And so active listening is a very key part of effective business communication. It's especially important in sales and in customer service, in retail interactions, as well as in management and team leadership. Active listening will make a huge difference to the profitability and also the productivity of your business. So that's 5 of our 10 key principles. Let's move on to number 6. It's important that my communication has an appropriate tone. And some of that comes from the medium I choose to communicate through as well, because there's a huge difference between sending someone a text and meeting with them in person. In some settings, meeting in person conveys too much emphasis on the item or the issue that we're talking about, and a quick text or Slack message would do instead. In other settings, an email or a text could be so misunderstood because it lacks tone that I need to be sure I'm meeting face to face in person. So you've got to match the tone to the situation as well as match the medium to the need. When I say match the tone to the situation, I mean that you want to use a friendly tone where a friendly tone is needed, or a formal tone where a formal tone is needed. If there's an urgency to the communication, that'll have a different tone than if it's some kind of mentoring type of conversation that's going to require action and thought moving forward. The right tone and the right communication medium are both vital. Here's the sort of summary of appropriate tone and medium would be: the how you communicate matters just as much as the what you communicate. How you say it, how you communicate it is vital in business communication. So choose an appropriate tone and an appropriate medium of communication for your message to be received in the way you need it to be received or want it to be received. American business wastes billions of dollars every year on miscommunication. If you're ready to change that trend, invest in Communication IQ today, because it will give you a great return in terms of employee alignment, retention, customer engagement, profitability, sales outcomes. All of those areas will grow as you understand the science of communication. So go to my website at markburlinson.com, click on the business button, and let's have an introductory chat today about how I can help your business be more productive by enhancing communication. Number 7 is one that we sometimes overlook. Our communication needs to be feedback friendly. It needs to have that invitation built into it for easy, regular, non-threatening feedback, so that the people who are receiving your communication can give you feedback as to how effective it was or how they've received it. They can respond to you with their insights into how they've heard you, what they've heard, what they're going to do. And those kinds of feedback will always require me, as the recipient of the feedback, to respond constructively, even if the feedback is critical. So, if somebody comes back to me and says, I didn't understand a word of what you said in that team meeting, or it's not clear to me at all what you want us to do or where we're going as a team, that could cause me to respond defensively, because maybe I put a lot of work into preparing that communication, or maybe I didn't. Either way, I might well be tempted to respond defensively, but defensive response is always a hindrance to effective communication in the future. So I want to respond constructively. Thank you for your feedback. Inside, I might be saying something like, I wish you hadn't said it that way. But on the surface, what I want to say is, no, thank you for your feedback. Give me a moment to think that through. Let me process how I can modify what I said. Let me reflect on what you've said before I get back to you. Give yourself some space so that your communication can continue to improve, even if the person giving you the feedback isn't maybe as skilled at communication as you might be, and therefore it comes across critically or negatively. But feedback is the fuel for continuous improvement in communication. So we want all of our communication to build in that feedback-friendly component. That's number 7 of our key principles. Number 8 key principle in business communication would be timeliness. Sometimes we communicate things too early, before they've been thought through. Or more often, we tend to communicate things too late, when assumptions have been made, or rumors are flying around, or people have jumped to conclusions without having all the facts. We want to communicate not too late and not too early, but communicate at the right moment. And that's not a once and done process either, because communication is always a process. The situation that you're communicating about, whether it's a project that we're working on, or a goal we want to aim for, or a crisis we want to resolve, all of those situations change over time. And so I want to also make sure that my communication keeps people informed as the situations evolve, so that there's always room for more understanding than there would be if the communication was just once and done. Delayed communication can often lead to confusion, or it can lead to a missed opportunity, and we don't want to delay that communication. Conversely, communication that's released too early and without enough forethought or without enough planning can also lead to confusion and misunderstanding. So we want to be sure that we're considering timeliness in our communication. Occasionally, you'll need to speed up your communication to address an urgent issue, but more likely you'll need to take the time to plan your communication to make sure it's being delivered in the most effective time frame, as well as in the most effective medium and tone. Two more that are also keys, and these are not left to the end because they're unimportant, but they're maybe less obvious. Number 9 would be to always consider the non-verbal cues, both in the way you deliver communication, but also in the way others respond to it and receive it. You want to be aware of facial expressions as you're talking with someone, or as you're reviewing a team meeting, as you scan the audience. You want to be aware of facial expressions. You want to be aware of tone of voice as people are responding to you, but also your own tone of voice. Is it appropriate what I'm conveying? Am I unintentionally sounding too harsh or too gentle? Am I sounding too compliant or too pushy? My tone of voice can make a huge difference to the way my communication lands. And what can I learn about how someone is receiving the communication, or how can I receive their communication to me based on an understanding of their tone of voice as well? What does the body language convey? Because you can say something in a way that implies that you don't believe it if your body language doesn't match up with the tone and the content of what you're saying. People listen with their eyes as much as with their ears. And again, that reinforces why important communication needs to be face-to-face in some way. Because you get the tone of voice, because you get the facial expression, because you get the body language, not just the words. So non-verbal cues are very important, and as you include that in your consideration of communication mastery, you'll find your business communication gets more effective over time as you learn. We all make mistakes, but if we learn from those mistakes, it will increase our mastery. And then finally, and I've left this to the end because I think it's probably one of the most important aspects of business communication, it needs to be purpose-driven. So many businesses have a whole pile of communication that the purpose of it hasn't really been considered. But if we consider the purpose, if we know the goal of the communication, am I informing? Or am I persuading? Am I clarifying? Or am I motivating? Am I directing? Or am I inviting input and feedback? All of those different purposes will change the way I communicate. Is my communication consistent and congruent with a purpose for my business? Or am I just communicating something because it came to mind? Let's consider the purpose of the communication, and particularly the purpose of our team or our department or the business as a whole. What is our purpose? Where are we going? What is the goal? We want to be directional in our communication to move us towards something. You're not in business just to sort of watch the clock go round. You're in business to achieve something. And what you want to achieve, the vision, the goal, the mission, the impact, the outcomes, the profit, the customer relationships, all of those things. Let's focus on the goal. Let's focus on the purpose, and let the purpose guide the tone of your communication, but also the structure of it. The way you structure your communication has to be informed by the goal that you want to reach, the purpose that's driving that communication. Because every message should move the business or the relationship forward in some way. Am I saying something to help someone improve? Am I saying something to protect someone from a potential pitfall? Those different circumstances, those different purposes will inform the way I communicate in a way that will very much affect how I say what I want to say, how I communicate, what medium do I use. All of the things we've covered in these 10 points. They're the key principles that I've learned for effective business communication, and I trust they'll be valuable to you. If any of those don't make sense to you, or if any of those you'd like clarification, why don't you reach out to me? You can reach me through the contact form on my website at markburlinson.com, and let's talk together about how we can make your business communication more effective using these 10 keys. That's it for this week, so I'll see you back here again next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.